Was that your way of... and if you need to start the
recording in progress.
We'll call this meeting of this special meeting of the Laramie City Council to order, July 28th, 2021. City Clerk, I'd ask you to go ahead and read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that a special meeting of the Laramie City Council will be held Wednesday, July 28th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom meeting for the following purpose. Number 1, City Council interviews, and number 2, to adjourn.
Thank you very, very much. Could you then now, City Clerk, give us the roll call?
Cumbie.
Here.
Gabriel. Sorry, Pat, you're muted. Councilor Gabriel. Gabriel?
Yeah, my connection is not very good. Here.
Okay. Harrington.
Here.
O'Doherty.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Oh, it would help if I unmuted Chambers. Hold on a sec.
Did you hear me okay this time?
Somerville.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
That's 8 present and 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. All right, I want to just spend a very, very short moment covering a little bit of our intentions for how to run the meeting tonight, and I'll be very, very brief. There are 3 questions that the council has decided on asking our applicants, and all applicants will be asked the same 3 questions. The order in which you will answer the questions has been randomized, and so you won't go in order for each question, but you'll all be asked the same question and then be given the same amount of time. It's not a particularly complicated process, and some of you may be familiar with it from having observed League of Women Voter forums and other forums of that nature. So I think it's fairly standard. And we will provide you each with 3 minutes to answer each of those questions. We won't be doing any follow-ups or anything like that. It'll simply be, let's go through these questions and provide you with an opportunity to tell us about yourselves. So before we get started, are there any questions about the procedure, or I'd even offer you an opportunity to ask about the procedure for next week for how the council will be determining our appointee. Okay, seems like everybody's set. So I think we should go ahead and get started. Council, anything from you before we do that? Councilmember Schuster.
We're missing one, I think.
Councilmember Schuster, who is missing?
Mr. Bershinski. Victor?
You are correct. Let me see if he is in the attendees. He is not. And of course, the city clerk would have noted that for us as well.
Okay.
Well, I think we better get started. Councilmember Schuster.
Okay. I just noticed missing one, that's all.
No, I appreciate you pointing that out. I don't know what to do about it. I think the rest of our applicants are here, so I believe we should probably get started.
And Mr. Mayor, I did see Vic yesterday, and he was aware of this forum.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Gabriel. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. And there's Mr. Bershinski. He's joined us. All right. Mr. Bershinski, if you can hear me, I just want to give you a very quick rundown There are 3 questions that are going to be asked of all applicants, and you'll be asked in a randomized order, and you'll have 3 minutes to respond to each of those questions. And we are about ready to begin, and you're here and you've joined us, so I assume that you're also ready to go. The first question is for Mr. Halbsgett. And welcome to all of you. Mr. Halbsgett, welcome. Question I have for you is if you'd like to tell us about yourself and what motivated you to apply for the vacancy. You've got 3 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. I appreciate this opportunity to answer your questions. Whether you select me or not, I would like to thank all of you and Jessica Stalder for your passion and service to the residents of Laramie. About me, I grew up here. I've gone to school here. I've raised a family here. I have daughters that went to school here and grandkids that are going to school here currently. I'm a longtime resident, father, husband, and business owner. I work very hard for things I have a passion for. I opened my auto repair business 3 decades ago and believe my employees and I provide a valuable service to the community. We are not the biggest shop in town, but our work ethic was rewarded this year with the People's Choice Award for Best Auto Repair Shop 2021. I would like to bring that blue-collar work ethic to the City Council. As far as the main reason why I put my seat in or my hand in for this particular seat, I'll answer that question a little bit better in the next question you asked me, but I'm real big on aquifer protection, and I know you guys are going to be working on that, and I'd love to be part of it. So thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity, and City Councilors.
Thank you, Mr. Halbsgett. I appreciate that. Next on our list for answering that question will be Mr. Glass. Mr. Glass, would you like me to read the question again, or are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go, Mr. Mayor.
Over to you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to volunteer for this position. My name is Brett Glass, and I've lived and worked in Laramie's Ward 1 for about 30 years. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and physics from Case Institute of Technology, a master's degree in electrical engineering from Stanford University, and I've had a long and varied career in which I've worn many hats. I've written several books, more than 2,000 published magazine columns and articles. I've founded multiple for-profit business and nonprofits. I've worked as a journalist, a computer programmer, a designer of silicon chips, a rental property manager and owner, a computer security consultant, and a network engineer and designer. I'm also an extra-class amateur radio operator and a singer and songwriter. I've served on multiple boards of directors, as well as the Wyoming Telecommunications Council and the sitting Zoning Board of Adjustment, so I'm familiar with Robert's Rule and parliamentary procedure. In 1992, I founded the world's first wireless internet service provider here in Laramie, which is still in operation today, and I was out on rooftops today in 96-degree weather installing internet for a customer. I am ready to serve the community. I will always listen. I won't burn out. I won't be hostile to or dismissive of the public, and I'll be collegial even when I disagree with fellow council members. I think this is an inflection point in Laramie's history where we need to make some very good decisions, and I want to give back to the community that I've felt so wonderful living in for so many years. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
Yes, I'm probably going to be doing that all night because I want to mute while others are speaking, and then I'll forget to turn it on to ask the question again. Next in our list, again determined at random, for answering this question is our applicant, Micah Richardson. Would you like me to restate the question, Ms. Richardson, or are you ready to go?
I think I'm ready to go. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for allowing us the time to chat with you tonight and talk a little bit about our positions, and just thanks to each of you for all of your service. My name is Micah Richardson. I am the Director of Programs and Communications at the Wyoming Community Foundation. And the Community Foundation is an organization that does grant making to nonprofits across the state. I've been in this position for on and off in some capacity at the Community Foundation for quite a while now, like 8 years or so. I was born and raised in Casper, and I attended a small teaching college in Chadron, Nebraska. taught in Colorado for a bit, and then headed back to Wyoming. You know, as so many of us leave Wyoming when we're younger and realize what we miss, it was great to get back. About 10 years ago, I moved to Laramie, and my partner at the time was in search of a tech job, and there weren't a whole lot. Clearly, there was something with Mr. Glass, but at that time there wasn't a whole lot here in Laramie, and so he was offered an opportunity in Fort Collins, and we moved to Fort Collins after being here about 3 years. And it was a great job, but we just wanted to get back to Wyoming, and we wanted to get back to Laramie. And so we had the great opportunity and the real fortune to be able to, he was able to work remotely, and I continued to work with the Community Foundation throughout that time. And so we've been back there since, and in general, to your general question about why am I running, I love Laramie. I think it's just a wonderful place to be. And I think as great as it is, there's room for improvement, and I would love to be a part of that. So that's the short answer of it.
Thank you very much. The next applicant for the question is Melanie D Hill. And Ms. D Hill, would you like me to restate the question? Are you ready to go?
No, I think I'm good to go. I apologize. Hold on. My Wi-Fi is acting up today. Hello, everyone. My name is Melanie D Hill. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a third generation Laramite, Laramigo, as we are commonly called. My grandma, her family moved here from Mexico, immigrated here, and then my grandma grew up here. My mom grew up here, and then I'm from here as well, and I live in West Laramie. And so a little bit about me. So I currently work at the University of Wyoming. I work in the Office of Multicultural Affairs. So really my position is charged with supporting underrepresented and marginalized students. So I work a lot with students of color, LGBTQIA students, etc. I'm really passionate about being here in Laramie, especially as a young person. I really love where I'm from. I'm committed to this place. And right now, currently, I serve as the chair of the board for Wyoming Equality, which is one of our state's only nonprofit organizations dedicated to LGBTQ issues statewide. So I am, I'm chair of that board. And then also recently in the past, 7 to 9 months, I'll have to go and check. But I've been serving as a board member of the Epson Center for Seniors. I did that because I'm really passionate about our community and about our elderly. I feel like, our community isn't anything if we aren't serving our elderly population. And so especially in the past, I want to say 2-3 weeks, I've been able to be present at the Laramie Farmers Market, which is best in the state. I will go to bat for that any day of the week. We have the best farmers market ever. So I've been tabling with them, and that's been a really awesome experience. Just having all of our, community members come and really kind of collaborate with us and visit our table. And yeah, it's been amazing. So I think especially when I think about why I want to be on city council, this is part of why. I know there's also that hashtag, that's why. That's very clever, by the way. That's why I want to be here. I think our community is one of the best in the entire state, in the entire world, honestly, in the country. And I would just be really honored to be, part of the people making this change work. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that answer. The next applicant on our list is Vic Bershinski. Mr. Bershinski, it's up to you whether or not you want to hear the question again. If you don't, then it's just over to you.
Nope, I think I've got it. Thank you, council members, for this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, for giving me this opportunity to speak. As you know, I ran for city council against Mr. Harrington in the election 3.5 years ago already. Is that right? and I think finished a close second. It was a good race. I got to know a lot about the council itself during that time, and I was excited to serve then, and I'm still excited to serve now. A little about me: I moved here when I was 7 years old. My dad took a job at the Laramie Regional Airport, and we moved up here from Texas. Shortly after, a couple years after we moved up here, he went to work flying for the University of Wyoming, and I ended up going through Slade School for 2nd through 5th grade, and then I was the first class, the first 6th grade class at Linford School. We moved to West Laramie when I was in 6th grade. And I've lived here ever since. Went through Laramie Junior High, went through Laramie High School, brief stint in the Marine Corps where I went through Radar Technician School, and then as a Marine Reservist, I went to college here. Ended up working for my thesis advisor, and figured I'd do that for a couple years to finish up some research projects we were working on, and here I am 27 years later. So pretty much a 40-year resident of West Laramie, and just excited about where the city is heading. I know there's going to be some growing pains. Apparently, we're not alone in the state of Wyoming at the same time that the state budget is contracting. I think our population is booming. If you look at the real estate market and things that are going on around the state, there's very little availability, and the prices seem to be inflating at a high rate. So I think looking at those issues and how we can help mitigate that in Laramie is one of the big issues that I'm looking at and excited about. Also, what the city services and infrastructure is going to look like if we experience that kind of growth. And I think those kind of problems are something this council is going to have to face, and look at how we're going to get clean water for everybody. Klaus mentioned aquifer protection. That's something I'm very interested in, as well as where the city grows. Where is that going to grow? Are we going to infill and do some construction in the city, and how that's going to look? Various other issues that the city is facing that I think are challenging but not insurmountable. And I think the solution to all these problems is going to take a lot of thought, foresight, compromise. It's going to take a lot of work on all of our parts to accomplish that and accommodate that growth that I think is coming up. And again, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bershinski. We appreciate that answer. Our next applicant is Siobhan Kelly. Welcome, Ms. Kelly, and let me know if you want to hear the question again. Otherwise, it's all you.
Thank you, Mayor Weaver. I'd like to first acknowledge the applicants that we have here tonight. I think that there are so many, and the talent and vibrancy really speaks to our city and our area. And I'm excited because of the process and the fact that this looks a lot like democracy, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. I'd like to acknowledge the city council members, both you here and also your predecessors. It is because of you and also our city employees that really make the city work that I feel emboldened to apply for this vacancy, for this open position. I will tell you a little bit about myself. I'm at the University of Wyoming, and I've worked in 3 different colleges at UW. And it's been a wonderful experience knowing 3 different large communities of people in our state and in our city. Obviously the university. I'm currently at the College of Law, and I do marketing and communications. I support our faculty members and also work on events. Previously, I was at the College of Education with the UW Trustees Education Initiative. And there I learned about the educational system and the needs and challenges our school districts face. Also, I worked at the University of Wyoming College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, specifically UW Extension, and I was a writer, editor, and photographer, reaching out again throughout the state and many, many different elements of the state, obviously agriculture, but also energy, youth, home gardeners. I mean, a whole range of people in our state. And also I loved the extension educators and the mission of UW Extension. Previously, I worked for almost 20 years for Western Research Institute, again, marketing and communications. And WRI is asphalt research, also energy, solving energy problems with technology, and environmental. So that gave me a broad exposure to technology, engineering, science. While I was at WRI, many of you know that I worked for many, many years to help with a grassroots bunch of my neighbors.
We're coming to time. We're coming to time.
That's the Lincoln Community Center, and I'll get back to it. Thank you.
And certainly there will be more questions that'll follow into each other and provide all of you with an opportunity for anything you might have missed. Our next applicant is Mr. Randy Hunt. And Mr. Hunt, if you're ready to go, it's over to you.
Your Honor, I am ready. Thanks, Honorable Mayor and City Councilors. It's my privilege, and I do appreciate the opportunity to interview with you tonight. It's much appreciated. Who is Randy Hunt? I wake up at 2 in the morning and wonder that myself, so I'm not sure I ever came up with a full answer, but I think I can do it justice in 3 minutes at least. I've been in local government as a municipal employee mostly, sometimes county, for 35 years now. Maybe my most visible role with Laramie and in Laramie is I was community development director for the city of Laramie for 6.5 years, and then a year and a half, almost 2 years as senior planner before that. My background is planning, zoning, and development issues, land use generally. I started with the city in 2008. That was my second time moving to Laramie. My first experience living in Laramie was 1994-95. I have a PhD in geography, and my first 1 year time living in Laramie was a 1 year appointment at UW in geography and recreation. That ended, I went on to other locations and other duties, but I never forgot Laramie. That's kind of important to me. I'll come back to that. The tenure with the city lasted through 2016, and since that time and through today, and for 2 more months when retirement's coming, I've been the community development director for Estes Park, Colorado. I have lived in Laramie that whole time. If you're thinking that's a lot of road miles, you're right. I think I'm on my 3rd set of tires right now. I have a hybrid, so it's not quite so bad, but gee, that's still a lot of miles. Looking forward to a quieter commute, at least, once retirement comes in September. As far as other background, before I became a local government staff member, I was in retail management for a little while. That was the early part of my adult years. And I mention that because I think private sector and retail are important qualifications for a position like council. It's not all public sector work, and I think it's important to understand the private side. As far as my personal life, I live on South 7th Street in the Tree area near Undine Park. My wife and I have what I'm told is one of the oldest houses in Laramie, 1877, I think is the assessor's date on that. And try driving a nail in the wall of a plaster house. You can appreciate the sturdiness of those old places, and I love having that. Many of you know my family. I will not elaborate on them. My 3 kids, all from UW. I gotta brag about my son, who I think is the first UW graduate to go to grad school at Oxford University. That's
Mr. Hunt,
university in the world.
we've hit the time. We've hit the
I'm
time.
done.
And again, we'll have more questions, and you can pick up where you left off, because you'll find that there's a running theme. And we appreciate those answers from the last 2 applicants. Our next applicant on the list is Frederick Schmeckel. Do you go by Fred?
I do go by Fred, yes.
And probably for the purposes of this evening, it'll be Mr. Schmeckel, but it's over to you.
And if it needs to be Fred because you can't say Schmeckel, it's okay. I've had 42 years with it and I can't say it either. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be with you here this evening, and it's wonderful to be in a room with so many people who love Laramie so obviously. I am Fred, and I grew up here in Southeast Wyoming. I moved to Laramie to go to college, of course, as we do here in Wyoming, but I came back after I left from College 1.0. Studied my Master's of Public Administration, and I took a job just to make ends meet to work at the business incubator here on campus. And I've stayed the duration. Today, I'm currently the assistant director here at Impact Laramie, formerly the Wyoming Technology Business Center. In that time, I've helped create more than 100 small companies here in Laramie, rising up from the brilliant minds of our students and our community members. The past several years, I've really had a passion for developing new programs that are accelerating the rate at which we're starting these new companies. I'm pleased to say that through 2019, there was a significant upward trend. The good news is that we're back on that trend, and we're probably going to recover here pretty quickly after this pandemic. Programs have been student competitions, competition that I then duplicated in partnership with Laramie County Community College, a program called Southeast Wyoming Innovation Launchpad that launched 2 years ago using private money to fund these small startups. To date, we've launched 14 companies and created about 25 jobs here in the southeast corner of the state, many of them here in Laramie. The companies here in Laramie are much more technical, and they tend to move just a little bit slower because of that technical side, but they do move fast for tech companies. There's a wide variety of things that have lots of implications for our community. We got a company that's going to do some athletic analysis. That's some very precision stuff that's going to have some good impacts on tourism and recreation. But I get to have fun working with brilliant people all day long. I consider myself an arts advocate and humanities advocate. I serve on the board of directors of the Wyoming Humanities Council, serve as the finance chair. I'm a gigantic fan of and supporter of the Laramie Public Art Coalition. I think having these murals downtown has really defined our community and made it what it is. And it's going to help preserve it as we continue to see growth here in Laramie from new companies coming in and from other institutions like WyoTech that are going to be giving us some significant growth here in this community that we need to address over the coming years. Live here on South 9th, have my cat, Starbuck, who's hopefully not going to show up tonight, but I'll apologize in advance if she does. But with that, I thank you, Council, for your time here. I know it's going to be a difficult choice to figure out which among the 8 of us you should select, and it's just a mere 9 minutes between us. But thank you much.
Thank you. We appreciate that answer. We're now to our second question. And this question for all of our applicants is, what do you think you would be most interested in working on as a council member? And our first applicant on our list to answer this question is Siobhan Kelly. Oh, yep, no problem.
As with others here, the first thing that comes to mind is our aquifer. Water is life, and our water is a gift. We have good water that comes out of our tap. So certainly that is a part, but also growth and development, how we develop as a city. And I'm interested in economic development, arts. I am interested in whatever comes my way. I look forward to doing the work of the City Council. And that is to say that I come with an open mind and an open heart, and I really look forward to doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that answer. Next applicant for that question is Micah Richardson.
All right. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity again to chat about this. And I just have to echo everyone else's thoughts. This has been really cool to hear all of these neat people and everything that you guys are doing in the community. So I'm kind of rah-rahing behind the scenes here. So anyway, back to the point. Few issues that I think are important. You know, I've been thinking about this, and it's, as you all know, real tough to narrow down because I think so many of our issues are really interconnected. And so when I'm going to kind of take the cheater's answer and broadly say economic development and community development because so many things kind of fall under that umbrella. Housing for me sticks out as a big issue. I feel like I've always kind of known, like you see houses on the market and they fly off the market, the prices are high. I have friends who are looking for something, but you know, there's just, rentals are tough to get, they're expensive, all of those things. But it was really interesting to listen to the presentation by City Manager Jordan and the City Planner a few weeks ago and really see that data come to life and that it shows like these are issues and these are the numbers and this is what we are, where the gaps are. I think about kind of right-sized housing when listening to that presentation and I frequently coming back to that missing middle that was spoken about and how do we look at that housing issue, not just affordable housing, but housing that is affordable to really meet the community's needs. I don't think it's an easy approach, but I think there's a lot of thought to be put into it and a lot of potential. Along those same lines, kind of our neighborhoods and the spaces that we have here in Laramie, I think are just incredible. They have such character and vibrancy. And I think there have been some really thoughtful approaches by the city and you all, especially like to work being done downtown. I'd like to see continued thought put into this. You know, a lot of spaces, a lot of kind of art spaces and things like that are happening are great. And in thinking about all of this, I think we really need to think about those ARPA funds that are coming out, the American Rescue Plan Act funds that are coming out, and how can we use those funds for those immediate needs, but also really take into account our long-term needs. How do we work together with the private sector, with the county commissioners? I know the county is getting more dollars than we are. It sounds like, you know, $5 million is being allocated to Laramie. Half of that has been distributed already. But when I, you know, listened to some of the council sessions earlier, the other part of that was, except for, we're not really sure how the state is going to move forward. So we're getting this money now, but will they pull back the reins a bunch in the future? So I think really being thoughtful about those dollars and how we can best stretch those dollars now and into the future is going to be really important. There's so many other things. The Aquifer is big, arts community is big, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. And we appreciate the difficulty of the time constraints for all of you. Our next applicant for this question is Melanie D Hill.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so just going off of what Micah has kind of brought up, I definitely agree with you, Micah. I think housing is going to be a really big issue here soon. I think national trends are not in anyone's favor. And I work with students every single day who say, you know, their rent is going up from year to year. And like, how am I going to make this work? What does that mean? And I think especially in the city of Laramie, we have this unique opportunity because we do house the University of Wyoming, you know, WyoTech. etc. Like we really have an opportunity to do new and bold things. And so if I were to be appointed on council, I think I would be asking those questions of us. So one, how can we really kind of work with landlords, with tenants, community members, etc., to make this work for us? You know, how can we do our best to make everything viable for the residents who live here? And then also, especially in terms of, you know, some of my priorities for council, I thought that, you know, that's kind of an interesting question because this is an appointed seat. You know, the members of Laramie City Council have been doing this work for a few years now, right? And so I don't want to come in and say, oh, we need to be doing this, we need to be doing that. I really go back to my values. So one, collaboration, inclusivity, and social responsibility. So how can I continue to work with the city council to, you know, move forward these initiatives that you all are working on? How can I be a team player? Because that is like at the core of who I am. I'm a team player. Like some of my family makes fun of me for it, but it's fine. But that's really who I am at the end of the day. And so I think especially, you know, someone filling this seat will really need to connect with members of city council. We'll need to have community connections. We'll need to be doing the hard work to fill the seat and to do things that are necessary to move this community forward.
Thank you very much. Next applicant on our list for this question is Fred Schmeckel.
Perfect, thank you. So first off, I will say that I think there's an immediate need to work with small business in the pandemic recovery. I think that we still need to do a fair amount of work in that area. I think we need to work a lot on tourism. I think that that's part of our pandemic recovery. We've got all kinds of green license plates up on the hill. Sure, it'd be nice if they came into town past Walmart to engage in our businesses downtown here. I'm obviously going to say economic development, given my current job. In particular, I want to work on entrepreneurship, helping existing businesses find new avenues of making revenue so that they can grow here and continue to have jobs that are growing and building upon what we already have here with our neighbors. A fair amount of that needs to happen in West Laramie. I think that with the projected growth of Wyotech, that we need to have a significant focus over on that side of the town. I know that that gets called up in almost every single election, but I think we're headed towards a moment of inflection where if we don't start taking action over there, we're going to kind of lose control of an opportunity to help design what that community looks like and make it incredibly livable. That goes into the enhanced livability that I think we need to work on. Some specific projects, I'd love to be on the airport board. I think that there is some great ties into the rest of the community that need to come through there so that we can continue bringing people in and make that a center that is utilized more by our own population, but also that we have some people that we don't recognize coming through there. And I think that we really have to work on finances and grants. I think that the state is really looking to change how they're funding our communities. And I think that that's going to be a challenge, and we have to find a new model for how communities like Laramie and the rest across the entire state of Wyoming are going to be funded. And I think that we need to be proactive and address that as well. Emergency preparedness, I think, is an area that we've probably learned a lot about here in the past year. It'd be nice if we documented what we knew so that we can move forward and leave something for the next people to have to encounter a horrible situation like what we've all been through. But I think it all kind of comes down to building collaborative partnerships with people in the community and people without being in the community that can add value to this community. I think that that we can't afford the silos that we've had in the past that keep us from working together and working with one another. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. The next applicant on the list for this question is Klaus Halbsgood.
Thank you, Mayor. You mixed up the question a little bit. I appreciate the challenge. So To be blunt here, I believe that I have been an involved and vocal participant in local affairs. You can easily Google me and find out more from that than I can answer in a 3-minute question about all the opinions I feel about a lot of things. I'm on the internet all over on Google because I've run for a couple of elected offices. The last one was county commissioner. I did that as an independent candidate. I had to collect signatures to petition the county clerk to be on the general election ballot. One of the things, many things I've talked a lot about over the last few years, aquifer protection is definitely one of them. Unfortunately, last year, right after I filed to run as an independent candidate, I broke my neck. So I had to take a whole lot of time off of work. That afforded me the opportunity to read a lot of articles by various research groups that have researched the aquifer and the contaminants, nitrates. I know more about that and 10 milligrams per liter, and I can go off on details all about that. But I know we only got 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to follow the acronym KISS and keep it short and sweet. Not the exact acronym, but I'll use those words. So I believe my viewpoints are very well known. I would really love to work on the aquifer, but as all of these great applicants have said, we got many other issues besides that. If we lose the aquifer, though, none of the other issues matter. But we do have a wage problem in Laramie. We do have a housing problem in Laramie. Believe it or not, we have a homeless problem in Laramie. And we have a food challenge problem in Laramie. These are all things I'd like to work on. We have a lot of great support groups. My wife and I, we help support them. But we need more support for them because we have a lot of people that are challenged in our community. We have a lot of people that are hurting right now. So we got a lot of difficult things, both on the city level, the county level. I would like to work with the councilors, of course. I would like to work with the county commissioners. I know most of you. I know all the county commissioners. And I know that also to be a successful city, we have to work with UW. Besides the aquifer, renewable energy is a big thing. You'll find me to be a very opinionated supporter of the rail tie project that just passed, so I was pleased to see that. But as far as spurring economic development, which I think is very important, I would like to see maybe different levels of the UDC so we can spur some growth. I've talked to a lot of other business owners that wanted to expand, and the UDC has held them back. I also know with the university here recently, we've had some issues with the aquifer and their drilling. Not much you can do about that, but the state legislature kind of stuck a knife in our back on that one. As well as when the university buys up land in town, we lose the property taxes on that. So making a budget is going to be very difficult with the revenue that we lose from sales tax with businesses closing and from property taxes. So we're going to have some tough choices as a city and a county going down the road, and I'd like to be part of that. I've got some strong opinions. I'd like to work with the city, I'd like to work with the commission, and I'd like to work with UW. So, yes, thank you for the opportunity to address those issues, and I know time is short, so thank you.
Thank you for your answer on that. The next applicant on the list for this question is Vic Bershinski. Over to you.
All right, thank you. I think I'll start at the top and say the budget and looking at different revenue streams, where the city funding comes presently, forecasts of what the state budget's going to look like moving forward, where the city can leverage the revenue streams we already have to increase those, and if we can find new revenue streams to improve the budget. Where do they come from and how can we increase them? Some of the things, I think Fred mentioned, tourism is a huge deal. And if you want to see those green license plates, come out here to Snowy Range and look at the Gateway Center and the Fly Store and the Big D and the Sinclair. There's an endless stream of them coming through here. And I know getting some more retail out on this end of the city might be useful. Keep them from just skipping over or making some last minute purchases out here. So that's something to look at. And I know there's still some property available for development out here along those corridors. In improving that recreation and tourism, maybe through advertising or through the tourism board. Also, as Fred mentioned, I'm very interested in the airport board. I've been a pilot for about 15 years. And I've seen the growth. I love our new terminal. I love the new FBO out there. It really is the gateway to our city for a lot of people who come here. And so I like what they've done, but I know there's some underlying issues out there that need to be addressed. I'm very interested in being involved with those. In addition to that, as I mentioned in my opening, zoning and planning and how we can improve the housing here, how we can encourage development or support development. But it kind of also goes back to budget. Do we have the infrastructure that's going to support that development? What do we need to do to improve the city infrastructure, the sewer, the water, the streets, the sidewalks, the curbs and gutters, and be responsive to the needs of the citizens that are already here and that may be lacking in some of those basic necessities that I think that the city should be providing, in addition to supporting the new growth that I think is coming, whether we want it or not. And so I think we just need to be open to that and figure out how we're going to support that. Relationships with the university. I think there's an unnecessary rift between the city and the university, and I think we can work on that. I think there's avenues that we can do to both open the university up to the city more and also to make university personnel feel a lot of the university staff, faculty in particular, are transient. They don't come here, they move here, they a lot of times they have a hard time feeling like they fit into the Laramie community itself. And I think the city can do things, and the farmers market is somebody mentioned, is a big step for that. And opportunities such as the farmers market and Jubilee Days and university athletic events are all things that bring people to town.
Thank you. I'm sorry about the time.
You're fine. That's good.
We understand the challenge for all of you.
Yes.
All right. Our next applicant on the list for the question is Brett Glass. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Many of the issues that have been mentioned are of interest to me as well. All of the issues that council deals with are deeply interwoven with one another, but it really boils down to one thing which I'm most interested in, which is quality of life. We need to make Laramie a more attractive and more desirable place to live. We need to pay attention to our infrastructure. We need more retail diversity. We need to strengthen our downtown. We need to promote small business development. We need to have more quality jobs so that we attract and maintain and retain the good people that we want to have here. We need to pay special attention to housing. Not only have I owned a home in Ward 1 for 30 years, but I am also both a landlord and a tenant, and therefore I believe that I've seen the housing situation from all angles, and I can contribute a great deal of practical knowledge and experience to the city's policy in this area. We want housing to be affordable, but affordable doesn't mean cheap, and our goal should not be to let builders erect cheap substandard housing. We need to use carrots as well as sticks to motivate the right things to happen. And we need to make sure that our policies don't discriminate against the inhabitants of rental housing, which many of the city's policies currently do. And I think we should rethink them. In general, I think that this is a big inflection point in Laramie's history, as I said at the outset. Over the year, I've watched Laramie's population triple. This used to be our phone book here. I have an old, thin Laramie phone book from 1992 here. And our neighborhoods in downtown have evolved tremendously since. When I bought my current house in Laramie, Flip McConaughey was the city manager, and biologist and martial artist Albert Trasky was the mayor. The University of Wyoming's entire connection to the internet was a T1 line with a whopping 1.5 megabits of bandwidth. And obviously we've grown a lot since then. The last time I checked, our population was about to hit 33,000. So we're not far from the magic numbers of 40,000 and 50,000 when our dot is going to light up on the maps of the big box retailers and other large corporations from out of town and out of state. We need to prepare to expand gracefully when this happens. We need to get our infrastructure ready so that we can have growth on our terms, as Wyoming Governor Herschler once said, and make sure that our city continues to be a wonderful place to live. We'll need to cope with the fact that Wyoming's tax structure is not well adapted for growth, that the university, while it is a great blessing to us, creates a huge hole in our tax base, that our infrastructure needs attention, and that in some way we're at the mercy of external forces such as national fluctuations in the prices of goods and services. In some cases, we'll need to engage in a sort of financial or strategic judo to get ahead. In others, we're going to benefit most from innovative or even contrarian strategies. But the important thing for City Council to do is do our homework, understand the likely consequences of our actions, and think outside the box. And as an engineer, a business owner, and a deeply involved member of the community, I think I can help Council to do this.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Our next applicant on the list is Randy Hunt.
Your Honor, thank you. I'll mention two issues that are premier to me, but it was, like many of you have said, it's tough to pick just two. There's a whole intertwined set. The two that I think are most important for me to work on, partly because of my background and partly because the city, I think, needs to move in these directions, are economic development and housing. Those two are intertwined, but they have separate elements to them as well. Housing is not quite a crisis in Laramie or in Wyoming, but we are approaching that. That is the light at the end of the tunnel that may be a train oncoming, and we need to be aware of that and be able to dodge that. The true crisis that I see working in Estes Park is average house in Estes Park is over $1 million that's on the market right now. We're not there, but when I hear our city manager, as she said last night, that Lovell is having a housing affordability problem, then we got some real trouble to work with. How do we solve it? I don't have all the answers, but a few of the elements are fix the UDC. I feel guilty and somewhat responsible in saying that because I was here when the UDC was adopted. I'll point out that when any new code's adopted, you have at most a 10-year cycle to revisit that in depth. And the UDC was adopted pretty close to 10 years ago. I believe it was 10 years ago in a few months. So it is time to revisit that. I know our budget for consulting is not tremendous, so that will involve a lot of staff time. I'm happy to say that we have a superb staff with City of Laramie, and I'll if I'm on council, I'll be glad to continue working with them. The other issue, I think it's economic development generally, but I think a few specifics. We need to diversify. UW is a wonderful one industry item to have in your town if you've got to have just one industry. But we are at a point where we need to diversify. The size of our community, the amount of resiliency we build into the community is critical. Oddly enough, for maybe some, I would put the aquifer protection and environmental concerns in as part of economic development. I think those two are more closely related than a lot of people realize. One of the things, as I think a couple of you said, Mr. Glass and one or two others, is quality of life. And to me, economic reliability and sustainability and the environmental aspects that give us the great quality of life we've got have to go hand in hand. Mr. Mayor, I'll adhere to our charge and just say those two issues. It'd be great to keep going, and there are many more, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, I appreciate that. Applicants, for our next and final question for you, we're going to give you an opportunity to drill down, perhaps with a little more specificity. This question is, what do you think are your top one or two issues for either Ward 1 or the city in general? And some of the previous questions, you've all done an excellent job of providing us with some of the broad strokes of your interests and concerns. This question is, what do you think the top one or two issues for your ward or the city in general are? And our first applicant for this round is Micah Richardson.
Great. Sorry, I just lost y'all for a second. I'm going to go back to housing at this point in time. Like I said, there are so many issues, but that one just seems to be the issue that impacts so many other things. So this is, we have got organizations, nonprofit organizations working together to help those individuals in town who are homeless. And the organizations I talk to, when I talk to Interfaith and when I talk to United Way and a number of other organizations, they are working to provide food and provide other resources for these families and for these individuals. But time and time again, there for rent, for a place to stay. So the low income side is an issue, and I think is currently trying to be addressed, and there's a lot of work going on there. But again, going back to that, the housing issue, that where houses are affordable and that they are what we need. So, you know, again, back to the presentation, we have plenty of multifamily houses, but we don't have those smaller houses. We don't have ways to, or very few, I shouldn't say we don't have any, very few ways to think about housing at different levels that meet the needs of more of our population and make it approachable for businesses. Businesses are looking to come here, and they're you know, going elsewhere because this just seems to continue to be an issue. So all around, that one is just one that really stands out to me as much as other issues are important as well. So.
Thank you very much. Next applicant for this round of questioning is Siobhan Kelly. Over to you. No problem.
I just get so excited, I forget to press the button. As most of you know, I live on the west side. And to me, the west side represents what has traditionally been Laramie's affordable housing. A neighborhood with sidewalks and small houses and communities where people know one another and know one another well because of the smallness. At the same time, the West Side has been, in some ways, kind of psychologically cut off. I've seen huge strides in reversing that in the past, say, 10 years. But I will say that you can stand at the park beside Coal Creek that shows a map of Laramie, and it ends at the railroad tracks. So I am here to represent Ward 1 and the West Side. So housing is fundamental, but also all the things that go with having a lower income, as Micah said so well, being able to afford food, being able to find jobs, being able to pay your medical bills. So it's like one thing goes wrong, and the foundation of a life of a citizen in Laramie just gets completely upset. So that's why I appreciate organizations like the Epson Center, United Way, and others. I think looking at our lowest paid and lowest income citizens is a very important place to start. That, you know, how can we have a stable citizenry in Laramie? And that covers a lot of territory, really everything that we've talked about here tonight. And I think this stands for thank you. So every time you do this, I think, thank you.
It does. That's a wonderful interpretation. Our next applicant is Melanie D Hill. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in terms of priorities for me, again, I will not disagree with anything that any of my colleagues here on this call have said about housing. Clearly, this is an issue that we need to address, right? I also think, yeah, one of my priorities is, you know, absolutely food insecurity. I think that just working at the University of Wyoming and seeing the precarious nature of all of our students, and they're not just students, they're people, they're young people who come here and want to be involved in this community. And if they aren't food secure, that's a big problem. That's a big problem that I feel like city council can and should address in a really major way. Yeah, so those two things are huge. I also just think too, in terms of priorities, again, I said, like, going back to my values, inclusivity and social responsibility. So for me, whatever comes across my plate, whatever comes across city council's plate, I will be there to address those concerns. I want to be as inclusive as possible. You know, I come from a very long line of strong Latino women, a very strong, you know, LGBTQ people that have come before me. And I'm super proud to hang my hat on that. And I really want to move this work forward, knowing that my identities inform the work that we do in Wyoming in particular, but especially in the city of Laramie. And yeah, there's no place I'd rather be. So thank you.
And thank you with the hand T. We appreciate that answer and all of the answers so far. Our next applicant is Randy Hunt. Over to you.
Your Honor, thank you. The two issues I discussed last time were the two I had in mind. If I can add two more at this point, I feel like I've covered my bases, if that's all right. So we talked about infrastructure and housing. I've heard a lot of agreement on those issues and appreciate the value of all of our candidates and recognizing those. The additional ones I'd like to mention are Ward 1 specific issues. One is a thriving business presence in Ward 1. Downtown is part of Ward 1, and downtown is everybody's neighborhood. It's not a ward dependent area. Downtown is everybody's business, and it's absolutely vital in my judgment that we have a thriving downtown. We have made enormous strides just in the time I've been in Laramie in revitalizing, and I give much credit to Laramie Main Street and the hard work and diligence that they have put in, and the downtown business people themselves. West Laramie has a relatively promising, in terms of geographical situation, corridor with Snowy Range Road. I don't know that we have been able as a city to take full advantage of that, either for the pass-through traffic, the green license plates that Victor talked about, or the traffic that we get locally. I think it's important to have all parts of our city have a viable economic base in terms of retail and other business development, and I'd like to work hard on that. I've got to mention the gem of a community that the West Side has and the commercial core that we have with Bud's Bar. I'd like to see the livelihood of that sustained and elevated and continue. It's a wonderful little oasis of a neighborhood in general, and for the business part of it as well. The other element that I think is Ward 1 specific is infrastructure. And I think particularly about the ongoing work we've got to do in West Laramie on drainage. I think paving streets and hard surface streets are not necessarily the be all and end all. I think there is, we talk about affordable housing. I think one of the ways to keep housing affordable is not focus overly much on hard surfaces, as long as we don't have streets that are leaving people in the mud or in a dysfunctional situation. That can be a way to maintain affordability in a neighborhood. Another element is in West Laramie particularly is the ability to handle the high water table and the drainage that we need to accommodate, not necessarily with the paved streets. That's my time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We appreciate those answers. The next applicant on our list is Vic Bershinski, and it's over to you.
All right, thank you. I'll start with the Ward 1 specific issue that I think Randy just touched on, and that would be infrastructure. I think that as we move towards development in West Laramie. I think the roads eventually need to get paved out here. And I think there's been a lot of planning in that regard. We have curbs and gutters extending down quite a few of the side streets now. But as new development goes in, I think we need to focus on getting as many streets out here as we can paved. And again, I'm with Randy. I know there is a positive aspect in keeping the cost down as far as keeping the roads in serviceable condition, but maybe not necessarily curbs and gutters, but at least some asphalt strips out here would be nice, and some walking paths. And then citywide, as far as the growth and development goes, I think the city council needs to be extremely proactive in our planning. I think this growth is gonna snowball, and it's gonna hit us quickly. And I think we need to be looking ahead as maybe our 5-year plan might be a 2-year plan as far as how fast things are gonna grow. I think the influx of people moving for quality of life issues is going to increase, and I think they're going to look at Laramie and say, hey, that's pretty good. That's exactly what we're looking for. We're not quite Sheridan. We're maybe not close to Steamboat, but we have a lot of the same amenities of those kind of communities at what people see as a bargain price. And so I think we're gonna see a lot of that kind of influx of people. And so I think that the city as a whole needs to be proactive on looking forward and planning for that kind of growth, and seeing how we can both support it, but also make sure it doesn't have a negative impact on the quality of life that people are moving here to seek. So.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
The next applicant on the list is Brett Glass. Over to you, Mr. Glass.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I guess that our priorities should be the people's priorities, since we are, well, I will, if you select me, I'll be appointed, but the council is elected by the public. So I think we should pay attention to the feedback that we get from the public. We haven't had a Ward 1 ward meeting in quite some time, but when we did, the trends of the comments at the Tuesday, the fifth Tuesday meetings were very distinctive, and it was very clear what the public was concerned about, what the public wanted. Infrastructure and housing issues, especially in West Laramie and downtown, were very common topics, and these are linked because when you get right down to it, housing is a form of infrastructure. Now, in West Laramie in particular, we've seen some progress, a few new businesses, some new housing, some pavement improvements, and we need to continue and accelerate this trend. In general, we need to promote economic and downtown development because, again, this is vital to the entire future of our town. And as for support for the economically disadvantaged, I do support the charitable efforts that have been mentioned. But I think an even better strategy is not just to give people a fish, but to teach people to fish. I don't want to just give them charity. I want to give them quality jobs that pay a living wage. If we can develop our economy and create more quality jobs, we'll make our whole community more prosperous, and these people won't need individual help. They will feel independent and self-sufficient, and the entire community will benefit. Now, as a downtown business owner and a resident who lives right at the edge of downtown and will soon be moving to the very center of downtown, I care deeply about downtown and believe that we need more participation in policy by the actual residents and businesses of downtown rather than having policy set prescriptively by outsiders. I think we need to talk about zoning, reforming the UDC, and moving back towards simpler pyramidal zoning where there's less red tape and no unexpected obstacles when you're trying to do something good. In general, again, it comes back to quality of life issues, and that's what I hope to focus on and help council to focus on if you select me to be on council with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next applicant is Fred Schmeckel. Ms. Schmeckel, it's over to you.
Perfect. You only limit me to 1 or 2 issues. That means I have to go very general. So I'm going to start with the first one is we need to manage and encourage growth that builds opportunities for everyone. This community gets 3,500 new residents every single fall, and the fact that they leave in the spring is because we're not positioned in place to help them want to stay here through a variety of issues, through housing, through job creation, things like that. But it's also managing for what we're expecting over in West Laramie and helping get things in place there. With the incredible growth that I think Wyotech is planning for, and I think that they're going to achieve, I think that we need to take a serious look at a lot of the things over in Ward 1 on the west side to make sure that we are prepared for that and the consequences of having so many more students here in town as we're excited to have them. Part of this managing for growth is also going to be making sure that we are keeping the culture of Laramie that we all love. And I think that we need to be doing things like supporting the arts and humanities here in town in order to do that. I think that mural project has absolutely defined what this town is for newcomers in a very quick manner. And I think that we need to continue those efforts to make the move. My second issue is going to be making sure that we're taking advantage of available funding. I think that with the progress made even today on the infrastructure bill, let alone pandemic recovery bills that are coming out, we need to be on the ball and making sure that we're getting as much as we possibly can from these programs to pay for it, because whenever we see a glut of funding that comes our way, the well tends to dry up for a little while afterwards. And I think a lot of our infrastructure is going to age out during the time that well is dry. So I think definitely finding ways to take advantage of available funding that's here for Laramie to do. We need to be on the ball on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next applicant on the list for this question is Klaus Halbsgett. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to sound like a broken record. I've been talking about this for multiple years. I do think the number one issue, no matter what ward you live in, is the aquifer. I know that the city of Laramie has a small percentage of aquifer that they can make decisions on. That's why it's going to be very important to work with the county commission on protecting the aquifer. And that is, again, I believe, the number one issue, because if we lose containment to the aquifer, if it gets polluted, then we're looking at building a water treatment station out there. We're looking at hooking those east side residents out to city water. I read a report, I believe it was in 2008, it might be 11, where to actually hook up the east side and build a water treatment plant was going to be excess of 70 million. I'm sure the dollars would be way exceed that. So the number one issue for both the county and the city has got to believe, I have to believe, is protecting the aquifer. And in specific regards to that, we have a problem that's just waiting to boil over, so to speak, metaphorically, with that gas station. I would like the city and the county to work together on putting a monitoring well out there, and if any accident does happen, to take actions accordingly. So that's the number one issue for me. That'll be something, whether you select me or not, I'm not going to stop talking about. All the commissioners have heard me. I think most of you have heard me talk about it. And again, you can Google me and see all kinds of stuff about that on there. The number two issue, renewable energy. We don't have a whole lot of land space that we could develop that. But there are some things with solar panels on roofs, businesses, we can maybe proceed there. But economic development is probably going to be the number two issue after, my number three issue after, I guess, aquifer and renewable energy. We have a great growth industry in truck stops. And nothing wrong with truck stops, love truck stops, but they're not the highest paid jobs in our community. People that work there cannot make enough money to buy a house. My employees make way more than minimum wage, and I've got one employee that's been trying for years to buy a house, and every time he finds one, puts a bid on it, somebody, usually from Colorado, comes up and gives another $10,000 to $20,000 more on it, and he loses the opportunity for that house. So affordable housing is a problem, but having decent wages so people can afford the housing is also important. And just a footnote on housing, the house I grew up in the 70s that my dad bought for $60,000, I believe is going for $340,000. So the real estate market in this town has gone absolutely crazy over the last few decades. I'm not sure exactly what the answer is. I don't want to put a whole lot of subpar buildings into our community, but we need to look at other options, maybe newer mobile home parks, maybe big apartment complexes. I'm not entirely sure what the answer is. I look forward to struggling through that with you guys if selected. We've got a lot of issues. Albany County and Laramie, we're the poorest county in the state. So finding the money to do all the things we want is very difficult. Some of you know I'm big on paved roads. Well, I've talked to a few of you. If we spent every dime that the city has, we can't pave every single road. It's going to be a long-term process. So as we develop economically, hopefully we can get a block here, a block there, and continue that trend for years to come until we actually have very few paved roads. But that is something that's going to have to be prioritized. We need to look at, again, the aquifer. We need to have good development. We need to find housing for our residents. Otherwise, people are going to leave. I left when I was a young kid. I went away and learned my trade in Colorado. Then I came back because I had a father-in-law that got ill, and I decided to make this my community and live here again, and I've been here for a long time. So you all have a tough choice. You got some great candidates to pick through. I don't think you can make a mistake no matter who you pick. Obviously, I hope you pick me, but if you don't, you'll still have my support. And don't worry, I won't go away. Thanks, Paul. Have a great night. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I want to say to everybody that's applied here, you do have our thanks. In one sense, I don't really want to thank you for making this a much harder choice, which you've all managed to do tonight, because you've all demonstrated individual perspectives and grasps on the issues, which is, of course, what we wanted you to do. This is a unique appointment process to fill a vacancy. This doesn't exist for other elected offices at any other level. I won't speak for the council, but I want to make a comment as one singular member of the council, which is that I would greatly prefer that we had a special election to fill vacancies, but that's not the way we do it. We do it through this unique process. You'll see some of the other council members nodding. It's because I think they agree with that perspective. Given that that's not a tool, we will do our best to consider everything that you've said tonight and process it and use it to help us make our decision. And we want to thank you for your time tonight and your willingness to put yourself through this process. It's not everybody's idea of fun, certainly, but you've all, I think, done a good job of showing up and answering questions, telling us about yourselves, the issues that you care about, your understanding of those issues. And I'll say again, I think you've all done a good job. We don't have any further questions for you. We don't have any other procedures outlined for this until we get to our meeting of August 3rd, where we will select an appointment. I want to just quickly mention that we're using a process where council members will take an aggregate score from all 8 of us, and the person that is at the very top of that list will receive the first motion to be voted on. I don't know whether that person will receive the number of votes required to make the appointment. I don't know if the second person will, and I don't know if the third person will. My guess is eventually we will find an appointment to the vacancy, but just a little bit of how that process is going. And I hope that those of you that have applied perceive that to be a fair way to make this selection. It's difficult to have a perfect system. So that's the system that we've settled on in our attempt to be as fair as possible to every single one of you. With that said, I will close the special meeting, and again with a thank you for your time and your efforts and your willingness to apply for this position.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council.
I appreciate your time. Council members, any comments or anything you want to contribute to this meeting before we close the meeting? Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention for any of the applicants that are still on the phone, the order of the agenda next week is an appointment early in the agenda, and then you'll be expected to participate in the remaining items. So I would recommend taking a look at that agenda in preparation. And I just wanted to say, as a council member that started this way, thank you all so much for going through this process. This is one of the probably the world's most difficult job interviewing process, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for those accurate comments, Councilor Somerville. City Clerk, I want to ask now, because that's initiated this thought for me. Once that appointment is made, I assume you will then provide the requisite swearing in for our new council member, and they will join us for the remainder of the agenda at that meeting, yes?
That's correct, Mayor.
All right. Any other questions from the council members or follow-up comments? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Schuster.
I move that we adjourn this special meeting.
Second.
I think the second was from Councilmember Somerville. All those in favor say aye or indicate by raising your hand.
Aye.
Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.